Everybody, Alexandus here with the Ashenfold Cartel, here with Sin once again, continuing the AshenMythos series. And Sin, what are we going to be talking about today?
Because we had some questions pop up after the last one, we'll be talking a bit about the sects. Not sects as in Baojikabawa, but factions. And we'll highlight a bit more about legality, and then we're going to talk about the hunt as an example so people can get an idea what all this stuff is.
Okay, so, and I think some issues that, and I've been fielding questions from the YouTube videos, and I think from the 2RP site as well. Really, people have been wondering, how can the cartel itself be neutral? People seem to be trying to be either labeling it as a good faction or an evil faction, but kind of go into, really, how do you define this as, we do kind of gray RP? It's not really black and white with us.
Okay, that's not the easiest thing to answer, but I'll try my best to do this. Alright, from the beginning, the cartel has been based upon this concept that there is no other group outside or any force of nature or faction that the cartel will align itself to or ideal. So, for example, let's say we say everything that is about the Elder Dragons and being selfish, overall, extremely, is evil. The cartel in and of itself is a selfish entity, but it doesn't align itself to anything. It aligns itself to what it considers to be the best venture or move at the time to ensure its survivability. This can be supporting bad people, supporting good people, supporting anyone, or backstabbing them. It really depends on, one, who's in control of the cartel at that time, and two, what are the motivations of the various factions and groups within the cartel and the individuals themselves. The cartel is basically a network of different factions, core factions, such as the sects, which are ruled by the Council of Five Masters, outside factions, such as the Five Families, which are still there. They're not happy. They're actually in a silent feud with the Five Masters who run the sects. And then another group, which we'll get someday, called the Najarim, which is a dragon cultist group that has infiltrated the cartel. There are different, and all the actions of all these different groups basically change, I guess, what you could call the alignment of the cartel itself. So whoever controls the cartel controls the world. So it's kind of like, if anyone here's ever read Dune, those who control the spice control the universe. Spice in itself is not inherently evil or good. It's whoever controls it. I hope that makes sense.
Actually, you lost me until the Dune reference, I'm not going to lie. But moving along with that, with the whole idea of legality, really we want to get into, and we'll probably do an AshenMythos about each sect in particular, but, we were going to talk about one specifically on this one, right?
Yeah, we'll be talking about the hunt, but before we really start talking about a sect and specifically, we should probably kind of describe what is in a sect and how that works.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise,
so,
I'm going to be talking out a lot of terms that don't make shit sense.
You said there were, we have five different sects, and each one has a sort of speciality, right?
We call it domain. And then there's also strength. Basically, this is how it kind of works. All right, so I'm going to just backtrack a bit here and kind of describe how the cartel works. All right. At the core of the cartel, we have 5 divisions. Basically, the sects, right? The hunt acquires, the blade defends, the coin finances, the voice negotiates, and the lore infiltrates and gets information. That's the simplest way to describe it. They each have their own avenue. Now, they have extended over time into different businesses and things, but at the end of the day, each provides one key resource that the others can't. The hunt specifically provides acquisition and certain resources and contract skills that the other sects can't really compete with. So to break this down even further, the cartel is an interesting guild in that there is no, how do I put this? Most guilds, the guild leader is the leader of the guild in character and out of character. That's not how it works with our guild. The leader of the guild, well, there's 5 of them. They make up the Council of Five Masters, is whoever basically has role-played their way to the top, who has earned the right via good roleplay. Now, having a character as a leader doesn't mean you have any out of character power in our organization. It's like being on a forum or being in a role play group in pen and paper, and your character becomes king of the country because he did something good for the people. It's just part of the story. Consider role play just to be a story. It's not about the out of characterness. It's all about the story we tell as a community. So the way how we rank things is based upon a concept we call tier. So we have tier 1, which is the master, and the master is the one who directs and decides how finances and contracts and all the other things are done. So kind of think of the master as either being a CEO, a mob boss, or basically the community leader of a group, right? They all fill those different concepts because a master is just a leader. What they do specifically depends upon the master individually. Below the master are people we call legates. Legates are their most favored, or basically their lieutenants, right? So some legates lead territories. We call those ruling legates, and territories are wherever the cartel keeps open operations or businesses or acts within an area surrounding a major city. Then we have other legates that lead cartel sect sub-factions called allegiances, right? The Hunt has 2 allegiances. It has Svartholm, and it has the Jade Ring. Svartholm focuses upon more legitimate activities such as bounty hunting, tracking down big monsters, courier work, guiding people. And those concepts in general, and we'll get to those in a minute, are what we call roles. So you have your legates, then you have what we call high tier 3 or upper cartelites. Upper cartelites you could see as being, I guess the equivalent would be like a squad captain. The idea works along this. The master gives out information, the legates then spread out the orders, and then the upper cartelites basically are the ones who go on the ground and tell the grunts what to do. And then you have low tier 3, which is your foot soldiers, your standard cartelites. These are the guys who really don't know what they're always connected with. That's where legality exists in. And I'll quickly cover legality. Basically, since we had some confusion, legality doesn't mean good or evil. Legality basically means if I am a person who follows the law in general, and I see things in the law-bound world, I'm not purposely going out and breaking the law. It's like anyone. If you're not a criminal, you're not really going to be aware of all the criminal activity. You're not going to be a big player in the Yakuza if you're not actively participating in areas where Yakuza are. So this is how people see the world. You have the ACAR trade union. It's like anyone in the real world walking up to a member of a major corporation or any charity or whatever. The ACAR trade union is seen as a lawful abiding group who funds things in Kryta and Lion's Arch and other lands in Tyria as a means to help people survive the dragons. They're charitable, they help support business, and they invest in things. Now, on the other hand, I guess the other side of the coin, you have the ACAR cartel. So, when I brought up the example of Yakuza or mob bosses, this is, if you are a person who's breaking the law and you're actively being part of the criminal underworld, this is how you view the cartel. Because this is what you know. This is their public face. You see them as a giant criminal syndicate. So, that's really what legality is. It is the public face that you know the Ashenfold by. We decided to go with more of a Mason concept. Everybody knows that the Masons exist. Everybody doesn't think they're a secret society. I really don't think they're a secret society, but there are people out there who think the Masons are running around trying to control everybody. That's kind of how the cartel works. We have our public faces, and then the word Ashenfold is kind of just this word that's tossed around, kind of like Freemasons. Some people think it's more than it is, but most people think that it's just some name attached to some group. Does that make sense? Mr. Alexandus?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me, and I just want to make sure that everybody that's out there, because again, we've had, I would say, countless questions from various people on both 2RP and YouTube that really question. They give you, for instance, situations. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if a good person tries to interact with a bad person? Are they going to kill each other? How is that going to work? And ultimately, there's two things that I personally say with that. One, a lot of the stuff that is said as far as what if this happens, what if that happens, none of that is going to happen until we are actually in game and the cartel members are interacting with each other in RP. A lot of that stuff, I believe, will get ironed out, and it'll iron itself out because people that join the cartel, they're going to understand what the cartel is. They're going to understand how it works in an out of character fashion. And it's really just working their in character persona, their character that they're playing in game, working them into their niche and, working in with their sect that they choose to be with. And it will all iron itself out once we're in game. You just need to, really just wait until we're in game. We have a month and a little bit at the time that this was recorded till we're in there.
Yeah, because we might have people listening to us in the future. So let me get a little bit more into that. All right, so I've kind of talked about ranking. So the idea is that the whole reason why we don't actually apply fancy terms like keep. Well, we have fancy terms, but let me get to this. We don't apply. We don't have a special rank for everything because that really makes things complicated. What we decided to do was we wanted to have basically one core system that each sect follows. So, for example, in the hunt, a high tier 3 person is called a keeper, but there's a different term in the blade. But the rank is the same thing. It's the same status. It's the same level of whatever you want to call it. And how one gains rank in the cartel is based around roleplay. We don't rank someone up based upon how they rank in the guild out of characterly. We rank them based upon what their character has done. If you're a good person and there's a bunch of good people that support you, you can gain rank. If you're a bad person, a bunch of bad people support you, you can gain rank. If you're a good person and you blackmail the bad person so you can get higher rank to help people, you gain rank. It's called favor. It's called favor and respect. It's all about gaining favor, gaining support, role-playing your way, blackmailing people, whatever you want to do. As long as it's legitimate roleplay, and you're not abusing the RP environment, you can gain rank in the cartel. That's how it works. It's based on real social dynamics. So, aside from that, one of the main ways how we help to define people is, and everybody always asks me this, why don't we have all this all filled out? We have these things called roles. If you want to really think about this, is if you really want to attach this, if anyone here has ever played World of Darkness, specifically things like Vampire the Masquerade, yes, I'm thinking New World of Darkness, and if you've never played this game, pardon me for a second. World of Darkness breaks down the game into 5 major character archetypes. That's what the sects are. They're like an archetype of RP, a kind of really basic archetype of RP. The Hunt is all about adventure, thieving, basically being a skillful individual, right? That's how they mark their ability. That's how they mark rank, and that's how they mark how you get power. It's about how skillful, how good are you at something. So, in the Hunt, and I won't cover all this, at the very base, we have what are called roles. You find these in all of the guilds. This is how things work in the guild. When you join the guild, your character is inducted, goes through the initiation, we'll cover that at some point, and they choose a role. A role is basically what you do for the cartel. So, for example, there's a role called Tracker. What a tracker does is they go out, they hunt beasts, they're paid to hunt monsters. Whereas a ruffian is someone who's paid to hunt and kill people. They exist in 2 separate allegiances. They do basically the same thing, but they have different targets, and therefore they exist in different worlds. Killing a monster is not the same as killing a person. It's legal to kill a monster, but it's illegal to kill a person. Same basic concept, 2 separate roles. As someone ranks up, the role expands. A tracker becomes a pathfinder, and the pathfinder does more. They give higher level contracts, take squads of other trackers or other people in and hunt down bigger monsters, be part of larger operations. That is, the role doesn't tell you exactly what you do. It's just the basis for what you do in the cartel. And there's over 30 roles. So I think, and you can also have 2 roles at the start and take on more roles as your character evolves. So I think we've covered almost, I wouldn't say every, but I think we've covered a majority of different character archetypes that can be in the guild. Like, for example, in The Voice, and we'll cover this at some point, there's a role, and all this role does is go around helping people. That's all it does. There's a role in the coin. All they do is work in a cartel business. Some roles are mundane, some are super awesome. So, we've covered role, covered concept of favor, and then the basis of the final thing we have to cover is, when it comes to sect, is basically something we call parlay. And what happens is, this is a meeting between the various sects, between the various members of sect in a territory. What happens is that's when the politics comes into it. If someone is going to make a move for power, they're going to do it during parlay. And then overall, and we'll probably get more into crew and troop when we really start talking a bit more about the sects in general, but I'll just quickly term them before I jump directly into the hunt. A crew is the term the guild uses for members of a sect in a given territory, and then a troop is a group of 5 members led by a high tier 3. And again, high tier 3 is an upper cartelite. I'm sorry if I'm tossing about a bunch of nomenclature, but I'm trying to define things as best I can. So, let's get into the hunt. Alright, the hunt was originally a guild company owned by one of the 5 families known as House von Jerul. They are a Kurzik guild. If you don't know what a Kurzik is, go to Guild Wiki and Google Kurzik. They were ethnicity in the southern part of Cantha. They lived in the Ashenfold, very religious, forest-dwelling people, very house-oriented. So House von Jerul was a group that was founded during the time of the second emperor of the Dragon Empire of Cantha, Jinyo. I'm probably messing up the name here. Pardon. It's Yojin or Jinyo, whatever it is. And they were a group called the Amber Guys. They were scouts. They fought in guerrilla warfare against the Imperial Canthan forces, and eventually their leader, a man named Gerald, was killed. And they and their allies in another house known as Redegund formed this new house called von Jerul, and the 2 houses supported this company, the Amber Guys. They basically, what happened is, on one of their expeditions much later, they discovered this, this is after, if anyone here has read Canthan history, this is after an instance called, I'm forgetting, it's when Shiro died, it's like the Jade Whale. Koenig's going to kill me for this, I can't believe I forgot the term. After the world was petrified, after the Jade Sea was actually turned to Jade, and the Echovold was petrified. Jade is a very, very precious stone found in Cantha, specifically because it's the former petrified, the Jade Wind. There we go, the Jade Wind. Thank you, Zan. Zan here and just corrected me. I can't believe I forgot the Jade Wind. And House von Jerul, via the Amber Guides, had access to this. So over time, around the time of Guild Wars 1, the A-Carts hear about this, and they begin to pay off the other local minor houses to attack so they can get access to this Jade Quarry. Basically, because it's really hard to get Jade. It's generally controlled by the Luxons, another rival ethnic group. But somehow the Amber Guides had connection to this. So after they capitulate to the various houses and other groups that are being forced on them by House Akart, House von Jerul marries a daughter to one of the A-Carts and basically enters the 5 families. And through them, in come the Amber Guides. The Amber Guides are trained tracker, forest dwellers, and fighters. They're trained to fight individually or in small groups. They focus more upon skill and achievement. So what happens is, it also had kind of a parity connection much later on. As the Amber Guides begin to evolve, around the time of, by the time that Wilhelm von Jerul III takes over, the guy that I told you about in the last podcast, who was the dude who ended up causing the creation of the Shadow, the first purge, if you will. This is when they become known as the By this time, the Norn have started entering this Kurzik influence group, and by now, you have Norn identity ideas of individuality, skill, and legend creation melding into this already individualistic, small group, skill-based sect. This becomes a very big thing in Lion's Arch. They've always been based in Lion's Arch, and because Lion's Arch is, by this time has slowly been recreated into New Lion's Arch, especially with all the Corsair influence, you start getting more thieves, more individuals entering in the group, and by this time, it has gone in the exact opposite direction of groups like the Blade, a regimented, disciplined group. The Hunt has become this group that's all about, I'm better at killing the bigger monster than you. I am a better thief than you. I'm a better pirate than you are. It becomes this group that loves to be rowdy and loves to just show off. So in the Hunt's main concept of domain is acquisition. There are other groups in the Cartel who can acquire things, like the Lore. There are members of the Lore who are good at acquiring things, but the only ones who actually have the amount of people who can complete contracts well enough and have the reputation for it, or even the network connection, is the Hunt. That's why we're called the Hunt. We hunt things, we get it, we can bring it back. And the Hunt's strength is basically in skill, variety of skill, whereas their weakness is their lack of ability to work as a large group. Even when they're in teams, the Hunt has a tendency to show off and argue with itself. Whereas groups like the Blade work together, they work in a regiment. That's why the two often have been at odds with each other. In each sect, if you go and read our wiki at some time, we have a breakdown. We have this concept called alignment. Every sect at a certain point tends to not get along with another one. Sometimes they all get along, sometimes they're all at war, like during the Civil War. But historically, the Hunt has kind of hated the Blade. Not exactly outright hated, but has disliked them at different points. And this is because from the time that the Von Druruls entered the Five Families, they were rebelling against the control of the Akarts and against the Akarts' lapdogs that they considered the Oryx. So if you really think about it, most of the sect hatreds, except for the Voice and Lore one, date back to petty feuds that result from differences of culture in the Five Family. And this translated over time to the current status where you have the current master of, and this is as this is recorded because it's very likely going to change at some point when the game starts, Yona of Yarkarten, my character, she literally thinks that the Blade is not really that good and that the Hunt can do it better than anyone else. She's even gotten to the point where she started training her own troops just to piss them off. And this also stems from the sects arguing over territory, arguing over who controls rackets. A racket, by the way, is a business category, if you will. So a lot of different services. The Blade currently controls the mercenary racket, and that's generally something the Hunt's done. And so the two are bickering over that. So even if with the domain, a sect can be put in its place. If you can get at least 3 to 4, even 4 sects to team up, then they can bully the other ones, or the other one. So as we go back through the Hunt, you read through the Hunt entry, you see the concept of domain, and this is if you ever see it, we'll link it in the description. We've, alignment, okay, so we have territories. The primary Hunt territories currently, and I'm saying currently because it's, again, likely to change, the Hunt tends to organize with Jade Ring, the illegal-minded allegiance, being found primarily in Lion's Arch. And this is because, again, pirate connection, large amount of illegalness going on. Heck, even the existence of a location such as the Hooligans Route is an example of why the Jade Ring is mostly found in Lion's Arch. Whereas, currently, the Svartholm is found in areas closer to the Shiver Peaks. Again, Svartholm is based primarily on a Norn hunting lodge that expanded over time. And so, it's mostly found in the northern areas where more Norn are. Strangely enough, Von Norn in Lion's Arch has nothing to do with Svartholm. So right now, Svartholm is based in the territory of Divinity's Reach, which is basically all of Kreta up into the Shiver Peaks, because no one's right now out in Holbreck. Again, likely to change. So, and they're each run by 2 different people, often at odds with each other. See, even if the legates get along with the master, the legates themselves don't always get along. The master actually has this concept of favor where they apply different levels of trust to their legates, and they use that as a basis to keep them in control. If you want to think about it, the master is the king, and the legates are the dukes that support him. If anyone wants an example of how that works. Broken that down. Various roles. Those aren't... I don't think we want to go through all the roles, do we, Alex? That would take quite a while.
No, I don't really think we need to. I wanted to just kind of give a general overview, and really, I would say almost everything that we're kind of talking about here, really, it's subject to change. And as you've kind of said, as you go through each point, this is subject to change, where they operate is subject to change. Everything is kind of subject to change. So really, just the general overview of the Hunt, which I think you've done, much better than I'd be able to do with anything. Really you've covered it. Was there any other kind of major points as far as Hunt related?
I was going to cover more of how it works in the sect entries and some terminology quickly. So, just quickly. Sect entries are generally broken down to the basics, which is all the information is covered. Something called standings, and what standings is kind of how the alignment is interpreted as a character means. So standings is stereotypes. Anyone here again has played World of Darkness, you will kind of understand what that is, and that's kind of your stereotypical information about how they view each other. The litany is something that should be understood among all cartelites, and that is basically what you are told and how the cartel is described to you. For example, the Hunt considers the cartel to be a hunter killing a great beast, and the actions of the hunter or even parts of the hunter or how they wield a spear corresponds to a different sect. Then you have historical prejudices, which is basically the historical aspects, and I've covered that, and then current dynamics. See, the whole concept that it works like this, how it works is that as the guild, think about it this way. If anyone here has read A Song of Ice and Fire, you might kind of understand what I'm talking about. In A Song of Ice and Fire, we have 7 individuals. The Lord's paramount, right? We have we have House Lannister of the southern area. I guess that's the best way to cry it. House Tyrell of the Reach, House Martell of Dorne, and these different regions. That's how the way they view the masters. They're different regional rulers or group rulers with their own goals and influences. So the way how it works is, as the masters bicker, or they agree or whatever, alignment will change, and then the section called current dynamics will morph, and so will stereotypes, as the stereotypes have how the sect views each other changes. So that works. Another section in each sect is what we call achievements. This is all part of the cultural overlay. Achievements is basically how a sect measures your worth, right? So in the hunt, it's all based upon completing contracts. So here we go. To garner rank and respect in the hunt is to prove one's accomplishment by collecting trophies. So, for example, there's a roleplay going on right now for Night of the Falling Axe, which is going to be done probably by the time a majority of people listen to this. And what happens is there's an instance where Yona has appeared, and she goes and sits on this big chair. Not really that big of a deal. Yona is decked out in a necklace covered in 12 vials of blood, each taken from a son of Svanir, various whatever other implements, teeth, and things. It's kind of tribalistic if you really think about it. When a member of Svargholm specifically, because the Jade Ring identify themselves in a different way, we'll cover that. When a member of the hunt goes to show off that they are awesome, they're going to deck themselves out in trophies or talk about the stories or basically try to prove. Yeah, that's another way of doing it. Zan just said in the chat here, Gene is wearing a bunch of exotic jewelry he's stolen. Or taken, basically. The hunt likes to show off. That's how they're going to do it. That's another reason why we don't get along with the Blade. We like the drink, we like to show off, and we like to adventure, and we love to boast about the shit we do. The other thing we have in the sect entries is a section called Life. Life is kind of the basic cultural life you expect in the hunt. So the hunt, boasting, fist fights, or shady assassins. Again, goes down to allegiance. Each allegiance is going to have different influence, but in general, the hunt is known for being the least complex, the most rowdy and undisciplined group in the cartel, and that's one reason why often we are buddies with the Voice, because they're the ones that clean up all the shit. So, last beyond that, we have a section we call Identity. Identity is how a sect identifies itself, so kind of self-explanatory. So, for example, the hunt often wears trophies, but specifically, we often wear, and each sect has emblems. Like, for example, the hunt's emblem is a wolf-headed axe. But there's another aspect. We have color. So, if anyone is reading here, we'll get into this at some point, technology. The cartel has this aspect has various identifiers. Like, for example, the hunt wears sapphire rings. When we get to the signet rings, I'll talk about that. But they wear sapphire rings. They wear blue corded amulets for the technological aspect, and we'll probably get to that at some point. And they also just love the color blue. And this, again, comes back from the historical thing. The color of House von Jerul is blue. And to the hunt, to wear blue is something you have to earn. You need to earn the right. If you wear blue beyond the blue corded, the blue corded amulet and the signet ring, you better have enough trophies to back up, because it's really kind of a way of, how do I say it? If anyone here knows a little bit about bikers or prison gangs, it's like wearing tat to the gang. To wear blue means you've earned the right to do it. Then last but not least, outside of identifiers, we have rituals. Every sect has different rituals. Every sect has, we'll probably get to that at some point, but some basic ones are, every sect basically has a ritual of how they indoctrinate people. They have challenge rituals, which are ways of how they decide, who's more awesome. And then they also have they also tend to have, I guess, games that play just to show who's better. And that's a little bit different than the challenge, because challenge in the cartel is it's basically a duel. It's a way to either kill someone or to dishonor them or to prove that you have the right of rank above them. So that's kind of the basics of the hunt. So, for example, the hunt has a ritual known as First Blood. And it's a very interesting game. It's pretty much a duel of hunting. You go out, and you have to basically... How do I say this? It's initiation, right? I got this wrong. You're given a target. You're taken out into the woods, and you're given a target, and you're told you have to kill that in a half hour, or you have to kill it in 5 minutes. So if you're given like a goat, they'll probably say you have to kill it one hit. You have to prove that you're good at killing something or taking someone. This might change if you're a member of the Jade Ring, and they might say, okay, you have to go steal something. It's going to be something different. You might be given a pickpocket will probably be told, you have to steal this item from me without setting off all these bells I'm covered in. It's going to be really random, random shit. But again, that's the basis of the ritual. They also have something called Hunter's Duel, which is you go out into the woods and you pick targets and see until you can pick a target that your opponent can't kill, can't take out. Basically, there's someone called Gauntlet of the Alleys, which is you must run a gauntlet of alleyways to reach a target within a set time. So if you're a parkour runner, you're pretty awesome at that. And during the gauntlet, people are hiding in the alleyways trying to hit you. This is something that the Jade Ring often does for fun and shit. All right, so what do you want to talk about next, Alex?
I think you covered most of it. I actually thought of probably about 5 minutes back when you were talking about the different sects and you were kind of going over similarities, things you can compare it to, because what were the two things that you compared it to? You said it was like some sort of vampire thing, like something darkness?
Vampire, the Requiem, and then the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros and Song of Ice and Fire, or Game of Thrones if you watch the TV series.
Exactly. Never done any of that. So, if there's anyone else that hasn't done any of that, or if you're just lame like me, I think, if I'm thinking about this correctly, or you could also do a comparison, because you and I have been talking about this recently, Skyrim with the different holds. Each one is kind of like independent, does its own thing, but really they're all working towards the security of Skyrim itself. So, that was
actually a really good way to see it.
It was about the only thing I could think of that was relevant.
Well, for example, I guess if you could really see this is that, I guess, the Hunt would be like the Stormcloaks, right? And then, they're rebellious, they're more rebellious, they want to stick to it, they're not racist, and then the Blade would be Solitude, right? And all the other sects are Whiterun, Riften, not Windhelm, but like the Reach and all this other group. They all have their internal problems, and the overall politics of the game kind of play into the different things. So, and basically the Dragonborn, not like the hero of it, but you're the different members of the different holds, and your interaction with the holds in general creates the meta plot of the cartel, and then every group. So, for example, let's go to Markarth. If anyone here has ever played Markarth, I'm sorry if I'm about to ruin it to it. Okay, so I'm going to say that, let's say, okay, I won't name groups specifically. Okay, Markarth. Let's say Markarth is a sect. It's a hold, right? If everyone here has played this, you know what I'm talking about. All right, you have the Nords in Markarth. You have the Forsworn. You have the Silverbloods. You have these different factions, right? The Forsworn want to bring back independence to the Reachmen. The Nords want to rule it, and the Silverbloods are a tertiary faction, just trying to prove their power. This is kind of how the cartel works. You have different player-made factions, different group factions, or different individuals, like the Jarl of Markarth, or a specific member of the Forsworn, that want to do something. They'll have their group motivation, they have their personal motivation, they'll have their goals in general, and that's how the cartel works, I mean, another way to look at it is that's how legality works. You walk into the cartel, you're told two specific things. You're told, oh, these Forsworn are horrible people. You must kill them. And if you play the Dragonborn and you hate Forsworn and you think they're bad people, you're going to kill them. But if you go further into the Forsworn conspiracy, you will learn about all the racism and stuff that goes on. And you might turn on the Nords and help the Forsworn take back Markarth. That's kind of how legality works. If you're a Forsworn character, you're only going to think along the Forsworn. If you're a Nord character who hates Forsworn, you're going to hate them. But as you learn more about the deeper plot, you're going to unravel more of the fact that the Forsworn aren't just evil, just as the Nords aren't just evil. It's two different groups with their own agendas trying to pull it off. That's how the cartel works. And actually bringing up Skyrim in that factor, because Skyrim is actually a good example of a game that does have a good hero that can do very, very horrible things, such as the Dark Brotherhood, and yet still has a lot of gray in it. Another example would be, I guess, Dragon Age. If anyone here has played Dragon Age, then you kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to different factions. The sects could be compared to groups like the Circle of the Mage's Circle, the different groups like Terran Logain. Terran Logain does a whole bunch of horrible things, but at the end of the day, he thought he was doing the best for his country, whereas the Grey Wardens wanted to save the world, from the Archdemon, whatever. That's how the cartel works. It's different factors, different groups, with their own motivations and own goals, doing things. Now, the alignment of the individual can change how the goal works, or the intent behind the goal, but overall, goals, motivations, and character agendas are what drive the cartel, not good or evil. I guess that should kind of help.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And this was actually a question that got posed to me about the overall story within Guild Wars 2 itself. And that is, other than the, I believe it was the Najir, the dragon cult that kind of is working or wants to work for the dragons, is there any sort of, or are there any plans for, the cartel to do something as to kind of like work on going against the dragons, the overall story of Guild Wars 2 itself?
We had a plan last summer, and we kind of ditched this because it was not. We might we're talking about bringing it back. We had this concept called blocks, which was basically player-made groups. You kind of see those back now with troops. A block was like 5 or more players forming like a business enterprise or some kind of ideological group, and it was nice, but it was basically a form of political movement, ideological movement, or political party. And the only problem we had with it really was that not a lot of people wanted to participate in the core groups. And we had these 2 different blocks. We had a group we called traditionalists, and another group we called, modernists. And the traditionalists believe that the cartel resources, and again, good or evil, should be used conservatively and should be used to maintain what the cartel is, to survive. Whereas the modernists believe that the cartel should be used as a means to force change actively. This can be taking over things or actively fighting the dragons. And the best way to see it is that when it comes to the story of the dragons, if the dragons are not directly affecting the cartel, then the masters are more likely going to avoid them. It also depends on the master. You could have, let's bring up slavery, right? Everybody wants to know why in the world does the cartel have slavery. I will say this. We like to have stories about downtrodden people, but by having slavery, and people are like, well, I don't want to join the cartel because of slavery, I say join the cartel, because if you want to get rid of slavery, you can. If you want to form an abolitionist group in the cartel, gain power behind it, then you can do it. Just like if you want to roleplay your character's rise as a member of the Vigil, gaining support to access cartel resources, to unite the cartel under a new speaker, or to take over the cartel with the 5 families or whatever, then you can. You can do that. You just have to roleplay it. If you want to lead the cartel in a vast army to kill Zaitan, we will probably never roleplay something like that. Specifically, we'll never claim that we killed Zaitan. But if you want to lead an army of cartelites to go clear out Ore, because your character's Orion and that's his motivation, you can. The only requirement? You have to roleplay getting all that power.
Okay.
Cartel is all about dynamic change and evolution.
No, definitely.
Chaos theory, basically.
Yeah, okay. No, I definitely wanted to get that out there, because I have had that question posed to me. So, but now we have it on record. But anyways, was there anything else that you wanted to cover, or do you think we're kind of good to go?
I think the best way to see it like this: the cartel is kind of like, if anyone here is interested, I guess, in stories like Hellboy or something, the best way to put it like this, or Vampire or whatever, the way how to see legality is, this is how you view the mundane world, the normal world, right? Whereas, once you go above, or once you go digging, you're going to, I guess, if I go further, I'll bring out Secret World. It's kind of like that. If you want to go digging and unearth the conspiracy, you can. If you want to stay and just be the good or evil person in his mundane job, or doing however you want, if you want to be the guy who just walks around murdering people, not saying everybody's going to do that, but if you want to be if your character is happy where they are, then they're going to stay there. If they want to go and find out more about the cartel and entangle themselves in the web of lies and deceit and truth that the criminal or the good person or the the sociopathic CEO like person might not like. That's their choice. The cartel is all about player choice. And that's how the system of the RP works. Player choice, player decision, repercussion. I guess that's the best way to say it.
All right, and that'll about wrap it up. So thank you for listening. And again, I'm Alexandus here with ShadowedSin from the Ashenfold Cartel, and we'll be talking to you guys again soon.